Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
All right, folks, it's that time again, the first Thursday of the month, and that means we head down to Charlestown, Rhode Island at the Senior Center down there, and our beloved Boomer Zoomers, the Boomers who are zooming in to talk with us about current events that they discuss at their weekly senior citizen current events meetings down in Charleston. Bill, Isabella, welcome back. Who do you have with you today?
My immediate left is Vicki Smith. She's been with us before. The lovely Victoria Smith, Vicki Smith. And of course, to the left of her is the omnipresent and never-changing Ken McCoy.
Like a bad penny.
And no cap today, Ken. Okay, no one's playing ball with me today. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, fair enough. Hey, Bill, before we get into the topics that we're going to talk about today that your group has discussed in the past, let's just remind everybody what your current events weekly meeting is about. Let's remind them you were not allowed to conduct your meetings freely at the South Kingstown Senior Center, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've been doing this for 8.5 years. And back about 1.5 years ago, the South Kingstown Senior Center decided that the way we were conducting our meetings, they weren't happy with it. Matter of fact, we were going to show a movie, and it was nothing pornographic or anything like that. They just didn't agree with the politics of the movie. At any rate, they decided to prevent us from showing the movie, of which, by the way, they never saw themselves. And one thing led to another. Then they came out with a list of demands on our part, demanding that I conform to a certain way of doing things. And I said, no, you're impeding on infringing on my First Amendment rights. And then, of course, things escalated. They basically threw us out of South Kingstown. And we found a home here. Michelle here at the Charlestown Senior Center very graciously agreed to have our group meet here. And we've been able to do exactly what we want to do. And that is,
your group is varied in their belief system, so you don't have unanimity. You guys are an example of how to have a discussion about controversial or sensitive issues in an adult and civil way, right?
As a matter of fact, Mike, for 3 weeks of the month, we discuss subjects that I bring in, and today, as a matter of fact, is first of the month free-for-all, so they're encouraged to bring in subjects. And then one Thursday of the month, we have a philosophical Thursday where we discuss one subject in depth for 40 minutes.
Right.
So we get down into the nitty-gritty.
Vicki, Vicki, why are you a member of the group?
I'd like to be a member of the group because there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that are intensely happening to human beings. There's a world that's changing, and I'd like to have some input.
And Ken, we know you're an outspoken lad, and but you love to share your views, but I assume you like to hear other people's views as well.
Well, I'm a retired teacher, both in high schools and in college. And I feel that I have knowledge, information, I have my own opinions and stuff that I would like to share with people and allow them to gain from my knowledge. So it's almost like a classroom.
And sharing views and learning from each other is what it's all about, in my view. And you guys do that as well. And I think a lot of young people, and especially a lot of advocates in our society, could learn from you today. Okay, so let's go to the first item. You say stick a fork in West Point. Well, that's what the article says that you guys discussed. Apparently, you guys are not, well, you guys discussed, and I'll be curious to know what you thought about, but apparently the Army is adopting a woke agenda. Bill, what did the group think about that?
Yeah, well, none of us are very happy about it. Look, on its own merit, diversity is a wonderful thing. We like to think we're all diverse in what we like, what we enjoy, what we think, and what we like to eat, what we like to dress, like what we like, where we want to live. But diversity, sometimes for the sake of diversity, is not a good thing. Certainly when it's coupled with equity. What happened to meritocracy? It seems like equity has replaced meritocracy, so the best do not always rise to the top. And here we are in an esteemed university, West Point, where we're training military leaders. we're imposing equity and diversity on them. That's just a bad precedent to be setting.
Vicky, if there's any place where you want the best of the best, regardless of any other characteristic, it's the United States military. Your thoughts?
The thing is, if they're offering a degree, and that's a thing, I think that those things should be, it's an introspective thing. I think it's something that you do personally on your own. I think that many people disagree from one end of the spectrum to the other. So let it be your decision, and that's what I say.
All right, so the fact that they're offering a degree in equity and diversity, but the fact offering implies volunteer, it's your choice, right? You're saying it may not quite be as alarming as some might think it would be.
Absolutely.
Ken, the article you guys looked at, and then add your viewpoint as well, says that West Point has become just another woke joke, turning out young Marxists with contempt for the very nation they're being trained to defend. Do you think that's going a little bit too far?
Yeah, I don't think that, and I'm somewhat familiar with West Point, but I don't think that any of the military academies, whether it's West Point or Annapolis or whatever, is the place for a social experiment. That if you look at the history, and I'm a strong advocate for history, Robert E. Lee graduated from West Point as an engineer. That his early work in the Civil War involved engineering. There was no politics involved. It was a strict military school. They learned how to shoot, they learned how to ride, and the politics, which by then was family oriented, was left out of the equation. So I do not see that type of the woke agenda, or to be quite honest with you, even affirmative action, or the whole diversity, equity, inclusion. As far as I'm concerned, you can put it all under a big rock.
Bill, you know, I'm reading General Grant's memoirs from the Civil War.
Yeah.
And we all know about the great work back then. I don't know if they were called that then, but the Army Corps of Engineers that you don't realize how much fighting a war has to do with engineering the ground and bridges and making and doing all that kind of stuff. Now, I guess a cynic would say now it's the Army Corps of Social Engineers. Do you think we've gone too far in that direction, or do you think, to Vicky's point, hey, it's just an option that people can opt into?
I don't think that something like that should be taught in higher education. I think that's a social thing. And if you want to find out about that, you're free and welcome to do that on your own. To be taught that, because don't forget now, when you're in school, you're supposedly looking up to your professors, and your professors are there to teach, not to indoctrinate. And I find that most of this woke agenda stuff is indoctrination as opposed to teaching someone. So no, I don't think that that belongs in any university, period. Certainly not in a military university at all. No.
All right. Now, Vicky, I want to go back to your point, which was interesting, where you say it's just an option. It's just an elective. West Point, you know, we think of West Point as the Army, but West Point is actually a college, right? It's a school. We do know that social engineering is not an option in K through 12 schools. Your thoughts on this kind of woke agenda being forced upon younger students who don't have an option?
I think it should be an option in the younger students. They have a choice. If they want to look into those things, I don't think indoctrination is needed. I think that children need to be offered these things. Human dignity and human compassion is all well and good, but not when it goes to the extreme. And I think that people need to just be open to everything and let them choose.
All right, Ken, final word on the military. Is our military in a downward spiral, or do you think this is just kind of incidental?
I think it's a downward spiral, that they have been influenced in the wrong direction, that this is a military institute. You learn discipline, you learn order, you learn to take orders, and you don't go back to your dorm room and smoke dope.
All right. I don't know. I didn't realize they did that, but if they do. All right. Next story, Bill. Tell us about this. A woman was arrested in Britain for praying outside an abortion clinic, but finally, 6 months later, she's not going to be charged.
Well, yes, she was not praying out loud. She was standing in front of an abortion clinic. She was asked by a policeman what she was doing, and she said, "I'm praying, silently praying." They arrested her because this is apparently in Great Britain, they've decided that surrounding these abortion clinics, there is a zone with which you cannot offer any comments contrary to abortion. So they arrested this woman. Of course, arrested her falsely. She wasn't saying anything out loud. So, but it took 6 months for them to release her from these charges and finally get an apology. What are we coming to when you can't stand in front of a building and have free thoughts? She wasn't praying aloud. Having free thoughts about what was going on inside that building. This is absolutely obscene.
Vicky, there's this concept now of safe spaces where
Right.
protesters or somebody engaging in prayer. Safe space is not for free speech, for safe spaces for institutions who might come under protest. Should free speech be allowed anywhere, anytime, or do you like this idea that certain places can be designated by the government as safe spaces where free speech is restricted?
I think anytime, anywhere, as long as you're not violent, as long as you're not imposing on another person, as long as you're purposeful, as long as you're caring about the other side and letting your side be known in a non-violent way.
So anytime, no, so this idea of safe spaces doesn't fly too well with you.
Not too well.
Okay. And when you were a young whippersnapper, could you have envisioned not being able to say what you thought anywhere, anytime, as long as Vicky said it wasn't violent?
I don't think I understood those concepts when I was the whippersnapper.
All right, but anyway, your thoughts on safe spaces or the British decision not to prosecute this woman?
I think there are really three issues here. One is, of course, the idea of free speech. One is the abortion question. And one is the prayer question. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Bill described some of the situations that we had at the previous center. One of the other situations that developed there was that before they served the lunch, we had a Thanksgiving prayer. It was non-denominational. It came down from above that we couldn't even have a silent prayer before we had lunch. So I think there's a little.
Well, all right. So let's a great point, Ken. Let's think about that slippery slope.
Yep.
Bill, silent prayer, in essence, is thinking godly
Correct.
things.
Correct.
If we start persecuting or prosecuting people for silent prayer, are we not now engaging in thought policing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's precisely the point. Now,
George Orwell, 1984.
This woman was
Right.
not doing a single word, an audible word. She was doing whatever she was doing. When asked what she was doing, she said, "I'm praying." So they arrested her on the fact that she had these thoughts in her mind and she was saying it to herself, but they enforced it with the SAFE Act. Absolutely ridiculous. This is not only a slippery slope, this is a very steep slide. I mean,
Vicky, agree. Now, Vicky, let's assume the woman had answered that question and they said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm just thinking." I doubt they would have arrested her.
Right.
But the fact that they did arrest her because she said she was praying, is that not overt religious discrimination?
Absolutely overt religious, and she's doing it silently. And she admitted to doing it. And I think it's wonderful that she came up, but to actually be afraid to pray silently is scary.
I think the most people, most clear-thinking people would think that this is a gross overreach of government. Now I can't stand there and have thoughts, regardless of what the thoughts are, but they're telling me I have to think a certain way. This is not the way things ought to be.
All right, Ken, as always, we like to have you have the final word on the matter.
God bless Ken.
I think there's almost a separate type of virus that, I don't mean COVID, but a virus that's going around where it's causing people to be stupid.
Well, don't laugh. I had a psychologist who wrote a book from Canada on and who said there is an emotional contagion going on and that it does spread emotionally, much like a virus spreads bacterially. So, Ken, you thought you were making a joke, but you're right on. You're absolutely right on. All right, Bill, what are you guys talking about today in your meeting?
Well, we're going to be talking about what Pope Francis had to say about homosexual marriage.
Yeah.
You go, oh, but this dovetails exactly into the wokeness, the diversity and equity stuff. We're going to talk about that, and we got several other subjects, topical subjects.
All right, maybe we'll bring that up in 2 weeks when you have you back on the third Thursday of the week. Bill, Isabella, Vicky Smith, Ken McCourt, thank you for your time. Hello, Martha back there, and have a great meeting today. Thank you for spending more time with us on In the Dugout.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
And folks, you can remember all of the Boomer Zoomers segment can be seen at the top of oceanstatecurrent.com. Just go to the watch menu item, select Boomer Zoomers from the drop down, and you can see all these great 15-minute segments with our Boomer Zoomers from Charleston. And for you, our viewers, we thank you for tuning in again today. For In the Dugout, make stun us out. See you next game.
See ya.